Well, since almost every single person we meet asks us about what SAVAGE Combatives is, instead of continuing to tell people, might as well throw a video up, right?
Get her done.
Get her done. I usually don't start back far enough. I usually just talk about how in 2013 I first started writing the SAVAGE Combatives program. Kind of backfill in from there, but really it kind of started when I was a kid. Like a kid. Started training martial arts when I was 5 or 6 years old with my stepdad. Trained out in the garage in the front yard with those Kobudo karate style weapons like nunchuck and bo or jo, tonfa, some basic kicks and punches and chokes and stuff. And when I was 8, the old man enrolled me in a local karate school. It's a huge organization. I don't even know if it exists anymore, that Young Olympians Karate.
Was it that when I was young?
Yeah. It was kind of a cool organization, though, because they had tournaments on a regular basis. They had, like, local tournaments, regional tournaments, national tournaments, so I had an opportunity to do those a lot. But I think I was only in that organization for a couple of years before I did something stupid and tried to fight my sister, who's older than me. She's like 5 years older than me. I got pissed off at her one day and I did something dumb, and my parents were like, all right, got to take you out of karate because you're not using it right. And then we moved, got back into another karate school that was loosely associated with the Young Olympians for a while. I think that's really kind of where I started taking the training more seriously too. I was probably 11 or 12 years old. Trained with a guy named James McKay, who studied and taught Goju Ryu Karate, Yuichi Ryu Karate, and I think some Hapkido. Well, I know some Hapkido, I just don't know how high of a rank he got in Hapkido. And I did tournaments and stuff with him as well, with James. Jay, I think, is what he goes by. His name's James. And I stuck to that all the way through my black belt. At some point, the Young Olympians system or organization kind of collapsed or kind of died off, and he continued on his own organization, or really his own school. Remember a couple times I shared that SCARS training?
Mm-hmm.
He went through that SCARS training. He went through SCARS military, paramilitary type training and incorporated a lot of that stuff into the karate school. And so my buddy Jarrett and I were like one of the higher ranking students. We were assistant instructors for a number of years and helped teach the classes. We'd train on a regular basis, like weekly, and then we'd go over to Kei Sensei's house and train with him in the garage, backyard, stuff like that, get some additional training in. When I was about 14 or so, maybe a little younger, got a flyer on our car for a jiu-jitsu school. And this guy was teaching what was clearly different than karate and taekwondo and some of the other stuff I'd been exposed to. And his carport, kind of converted his carport into like a little dojo. Laid carpet down and set up some stuff to train. I trained in that for quite a number of years. He called it a jiu-jitsu system. There's all these different stories of how he either created the system or got it from someone else. It's not really that important. But that's where I trained for a lot of years. And then all the while, my dad's always been kind of an outdoorsy guy. You know, so we went gold panning and fishing and hunting, spent a lot of times outdoors. We'd go shooting a lot. My dad was always into guns, recreational shooting. So I kind of grew up around firearms and firearm safety, pistol, rifle, shotgun. Grew up outdoors, hunting, fishing, so on and so forth. And of course doing martial arts. When I turned 18, I joined the Marine Corps and was kind of fortunate in the fact that it was a time where the Marine Corps is transitioning from doing the old line training to the Marine Corps martial arts program, which I was super excited about. You know, being in martial arts my whole life, I had an opportunity to kind of get on the ground floor as the first part of the first platoon, or really company, to go through boot camp, where at the end you got a tan belt. So we were some of the first promoted trainees or recruits going through Marine Corps boot camp that were exposed to the Marine Corps martial arts program. There were a lot of other people. Like one of my drill instructors was a green belt instructor in the Marine Corps martial arts program. So there were certainly, the program had already existed, but when it came time to rolling it out to the new recruits and kind of teaching it across the Marine Corps uniformly, I was on part of that first company.
Nice.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then right around that time, I don't know, probably in my late teens, early 20s, 19, 20 years old, I got hooked up with a guy named Peter Brusso, who I initially kind of landed on his doorstep because I wanted to start training in the Bujinkan, which is a organization that's comprised of 9 different martial arts. I don't really want to go too far into that, but fairly large organization now. I think we were talking to Dale this last weekend. He said there's like 300,000 members in the Bujinkan worldwide now. So this is back in the early 2000s, maybe 2001, 2002. I started training with Peter Brusso, wanting to train in the Bujinkan because he, from what I was told, was a Bujinkan instructor. Turns out I think at the time, I don't know what he is now, I haven't talked to him in a lot of years, but at the time he was like a 4th degree black belt in Bujinkan. Typically you have to be a 5th degree black belt if you're going to be a fully licensed instructor. But Peter was doing his own thing. He was teaching Anjing Banfa, which is like an art that he kind of came up with based on his experiences in Vietnam and his experience in Hapkido, Wing Chun, Arnis, and a bunch of different martial arts, a lot of Bujinkan type stuff. But that art was kind of unique because it was like an out-of-the-box thinking martial art. You know, it wasn't what you would typically see in a traditional martial art. It was a lot of like mental stuff, you know, a lot of mindset. You know, how to think, how to. I would say it's probably closer to a combative system than it is what you would experience or what you would expect out of a typical martial arts system. But the cool thing about Peter was he was also, and still is, a subject matter expert for the Marine Corps Martial Arts Program. Has a personal relationship with Colonel Joe Shusko, which is the commander of the MACE, the Martial Arts Center for Excellence, Quantico, Virginia. And a personal relationship with, I don't know if he's a Master Gunnery Sergeant now, but the Staff NCOIC of the MACE, which was Franklin, was his last name. So it was cool to have exposure to those guys, especially because I was in the Marine Corps at the time. So that was a cool experience. And I trained with Peter off and on for a number of years. Eventually, I got my 6th degree black belt in the system before I was kind of, him and I split ways. It's a bummer that we did because, you know, I was really close with Peter for a lot of years, but it is what it is, you know. Things end up happening.
Yep.
But Peter as well did a lot of like firearms type stuff, a lot of modern combative type, as well as, you know, traditional martial arts, kind of melding the two together. But during one of my sabbaticals from Peter's school is when I started training in the Bujinkan. Knowing that I wasn't going to get any Bujinkan training with Peter, I kind of sought that out on my own. So we just came up from Northern California. I would drive from Southern California to Northern California every other weekend or at least once a month to train with a guy named Joel Everett up there. Now, I started off my Bujinkan training probably the same way a number of people do, which I don't suggest, by the way, which was these video series from Richard Van Dunk. And it was kind of my dad and I. It was really just spending time with my dad, continuing to do a new martial art that him and I hadn't been exposed to. So we'd watch these videos, hang out at home, and then we'd get together and train in the evening times and on the weekends, kind of doing our best to replicate these videos. Once you learned the material, you'd videotape yourself, send it in, and some people would review your videotape and give you some corrections and stuff like that. And once a year, we'd come back up to Northern California and go to this camp that Richard Van Dunk hosted, which was a really cool camp. It was a cool experience. A lot of people from all over the place, different countries and stuff, would go to this camp. And we had an opportunity to train together, and some senior students, black belts, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th degree black belts, would have an opportunity to work with you one-on-one to physically, hey, move this way, don't move that way type deal. That's really important in the Bujinkan. But I'm digressing, I guess. So I trained in the Bujinkan. I think there was a seminar that Joel hosted at one point, quite a number of years ago, probably 15 years ago or so, where he had Arnaud from France come over and teach a seminar. I had an opportunity to attend that, and I got my black belt during that seminar, which was kind of cool because I already had my own students down in Southern California. So it kind of gave me an opportunity to, Joel encouraged me to start incorporating or teaching the Bujinkan curriculum, because I wasn't at the time. I was teaching the karate, I was teaching the jiu-jitsu that I'd been still continuing to train on and off, and I was teaching the Anjing Banfa that I had learned. So now I had an opportunity to start incorporating Bujinkan training, but that didn't really end up lasting. Joel was really young, I was really young, and so we had some issues, and I ended up, as a result of that, leaving the whole Bujinkan organization shortly after I got my black belt, probably 6 months later or so. And I just started kind of training a bunch of different martial arts and trying to gain exposure to really trying to find a home, I guess you can say. And all the meanwhile, I'm still in the Marine Corps. I was working different security jobs, doing some bodyguarding type stuff in Southern California. A lot of local stuff. I got hooked up with an organization that did bodyguarding down in Mexico to musicians, like large musicians and stuff. But unfortunately, I never really had an opportunity to go down there and do that. Kind of just the way it worked out. I hooked up with a guy named Vinny Ciceri. Really super nice guy. Talented martial artist. I happened to see him walking out of a Chinese food place one time. Now, again, I was a young kid, probably 18, 19, 20 years old when I met him. And he's lived in Hollywood at the time. I think he lives close to there now, has his own jiu-jitsu school. And so I had an opportunity to train with him off and on, and I worked with him as well in a company he owned, a security company called the 5th Group. So we did bodyguarding and nightclub bouncing and stuff like that with him. So I was getting a lot of experience, military experience, civilian experience, and continuing my martial arts training. Trained in different sword systems and just a bunch of different things. Arnis, Kali Eskrima, Penjak Salat, but nothing like super formal, as far as enrolling as a student. More just kind of getting together with guys and training on a regular basis. And then in 2007, 2008 time frame, probably 2008, I got together with Don Angers of the Shidari and Agidu, and I started training there. And I trained there fairly regularly until I left to go join the Border Patrol, February 2011. And that moved me out of California. I was in Arizona. And I think that's probably for the majority of the time I was in the Border Patrol out there. I was out there for 3.5 years in Arizona. I didn't really train a whole lot in martial arts. But I was doing a lot of shooting. I was doing a lot of tactical type work. I'd gotten out of the Marine Corps in 2009. And so I was transitioning into this law enforcement mindset. I think it was probably right around that time frame that I really started thinking about wanting to write a program that would incorporate all of my martial arts training, all of my bodyguarding, security training, bouncing, all of my military training. Obviously, I'm not saying all of it, but the things that I learned that were pertinent to being able to protect yourself in a situation. And now my law enforcement training, I wanted to put that together into like a comprehensive program that I could teach I really had my wife and kids in mind at the time when I started writing this program. So in 2013, I really started working on this program and writing this program to be able to teach my wife and kids so they can learn how to use a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun, learn how to low light tactics, learn how to work with one another in team tactics, learn how to deal with multiple opponents, how to use barriers and concealment and cover, and how to use bladed weapons, impact weapons, how to deal with bladed weapons and impact weapons if somebody should use it against them, handcuffing, all kinds of, pretty much the whole comprehensive system that you can think of. And the reason why I wanted to write the program is because what I noticed going through, and we'll work our way backwards, what I noticed going through law enforcement training is, they have good pistol training and okay rifle training. They have excellent handcuffing, which you don't get in the military or in martial arts. But their knife work is subpar. Their impact weapons, baton work is subpar. So the military, on the other hand, has a lot of really good team tactics. Their military operations, urban training, their mount training, I think is really good. There was a lot of things that I learned in the Marine Corps that I think law enforcement and the civilian sector fall short on. And then there's a lot of things in martial arts, like I said, like knife work and stick work and a lot of the unarmed combatives that I think law enforcement and the military fall short. So where each organization or each thing fell short, I felt like the other supplemented it really well. So I wrote this program, like I said, in 2013. I think in 2014 timeframe, right when Don passed away. And by this time, I'd already left the Border Patrol. I was working over in Customs in Long Beach. And I kind of rolled out the program. It was super preliminary. I'd met you at the time. You and I had already met. And I emailed the program to a handful of people, 10, 15 people, across a multi-spectrum. So military guys, I emailed a few military guys, I emailed a few martial arts guys, I emailed a few security contractors, and I emailed some law enforcement guys, and I really wanted to get their feedback. And some people didn't give me any feedback, and some people gave me a lot of feedback, and some people gave me just nothing but negative feedback. So I took a lot of that into consideration, kind of tweaked the program a little bit, added things in, took things out, moved things around. And I would say, the Savage Combatives program is still changing. And as far as the name Savage goes, that was pretty much the first thing I named it. And the reason why I named it that way was really twofold. One, when I was a kid, when I was a young kid, particularly training in martial arts, whenever you saw somebody do something, or whenever I saw somebody do something that I thought was like awesome or radical, or, like you'd be at a tournament and a guy goes to get kicked in the face and he moves out of the way real fast and counters and ends up, getting a point or whatever. You're like, dude, what a total savage. Like, that was awesome. Or when somebody did something and they survived a potentially dangerous situation, I always call those people savages. Like, dude, that dude's a savage. Watching early UFC fights or boxing fights and stuff like that, and the guy just totally getting the crap beat out of him and end up winning at the end and enduring and surviving. Those are the people I refer to as savage. Like, dude, that was savage. So when I got a little bit older, after being in the military and law enforcement and stuff like that, of course, all of the military guys love our acronyms, so I basically just tried to come up with an acronym for savage. I knew I wanted to use the word savage. It wasn't until later that I came up with the acronym Surviving Against Violent and Grievous Encounters for SAVAGE. But I knew it wasn't going to be, I knew I didn't want to write a martial arts program, and there's so much modern warfare type stuff in the program that it wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to call it a martial art per se. So it was essentially a combatives program, and that's where Savage Combatives was really born. Over the last few years, I haven't really had an opportunity to roll the program out officially, for a lot of reasons. One, we don't have an official classroom yet, so a lot of it, there's PowerPoint presentations that I've been writing in different classroom settings that I've been writing, in addition to hands-on training. And that's the other part. I don't necessarily have the hands-on training facility for it either. You know, we don't have an outdoor range or anything that's suitable for the majority of the programs. But I have worked with you over the last few years. And of course, I'm not talking to you now. I'm talking for the benefit of the people watching this. Getting together with you over the last couple of years and having your experiences in the outdoor survival. You're really into bushcraft, and I've learned a lot from you. Like, you know, I always knew how to start a basic fire, for example. But first time I ever started flint and steel fire was with you. First time I ever started a fire with a ferrocerium rod was with you. A ton of stuff I learned as far as like jute twine and charcoal. Never made charcloth before I met you. So there's a ton of stuff, and that's just on the fire building. You know, we haven't really even gone over a lot of water filtration, you know, as far as training on that goes. We haven't done a lot of shelter building. Like you and I, you've never like taught me that stuff. I can go out and set up a tent, but going up and setting primitive shelter, or, you know, going into a location and building a primitive shelter, you know, I've never done any of that stuff. But I thought that was important to be able to include into a surviving against violent and grievous encounter program. So that's why I kind of asked you to come on board a couple of years ago to add that flavor, add that element into it. Little did I know that people were going to be more interested in in that aspect than they were going to be in the firearms and knife and the fighting aspect. So that's kind of where we're at right now with the SAVAGE Combatives program. You know, it was a few months ago we decided that we were going to kind of start taking this thing a little bit more seriously. So it's been about 4 or 5 years since I wrote the program. And I've taught a couple classes here and there. Usually we just go out shooting or we get together and stuff, and I'm like, oh, here, tweak this, move this, here, that. And, you know, I mean, it's on an individual basis. But as far as like, hey, we're going to have a class with 15 students or 20 students or 10 students or whatever the case is, and this is what the class is going to be on, we've never really officially rolled anything out like that. We're talking about it, you know, we're working on it, we're building it. We've got classes written and stuff. We just, one, we haven't had the time. And two, we're really just kind of gaining exposure right now, getting our name out there.
Well, every time you do a one-on-one with somebody, they are begging you for more classes.
Yeah.
Every time. Never fails.
Well, I've never really stopped teaching martial arts either. You know, since I've been in the law enforcement agency that I'm in now, I haven't taught martial arts as far as a business. Actually, I haven't taught martial arts as far as a business since I've been in law enforcement at all. You know, the young lady across the street, I trade martial arts lessons for her to teach violin to my daughter. I had another martial arts student for a while that was a massage therapist, so my wife would get a massage, or I'd get a massage once a month, and that would be in exchange for her lessons. But for the most part, I mean, I haven't taught martial arts or really anything as far as a business go. I haven't charged any money, haven't really done anything. The majority of what people see as far as what SAVAGE Combatives is now is, hey, these guys do YouTube videos. We do the What's in Your Pocket series for our EDC series. We're trying to roll out this Tactical Trunk Tuesday series, which we forgot last Tuesday. Well, we didn't forget. We're just building and planning for this trip and stuff. And we've done a couple instructional videos. Having a good time doing videos and stuff.
Making a lot of great contacts.
Making contacts. Yeah. Kissing babies. Shaking hands and kissing babies. So that's essentially, the overall plan though. Looking forward, I would love to be able to have a piece of property where we have an outdoor range on, or at least a location or facility, if it's not an official range, somewhere where we can shoot, somewhere where it's safe and, you know, effectively a shooting range. Something that has a mat room, or a large enough mat room to where we can do all of our, you know, handcuffing and baton work and knife work and so on and so forth. Yep. I'd like to eventually build like a little shoot house to where we can have simunition rounds or airsoft and go in there and do some sort of room clearing, house clearing, ordering people out, whatever the case is, and have a classroom setting where we can teach, you know, PowerPoint presentation in classrooms. And right now, you know, a lot of that stuff's in the works, but it's just not here right now. We had an opportunity for an investor about a year ago, and that didn't end up working out, which is fine. But that's where I'd like to see us go long term.
Long term. That doesn't mean we can't do stuff now, though.
Oh no, for
We've
sure.
got locations for shooting. We've got locations to go out and do survival classes and bushcraft classes.
Yeah, and you know, I talked to the pastor of my church, and really the pastor of my wife's church, I guess you would say. So he said we could use the church office to teach classes out of, and there's BLM land near us to be able to shoot out of.
Yep.
So, I mean, there are options available, but as far as something on a regular basis that we could call our own, we just don't have that right this second.
Working on it.
That's where I'd like to see us go. What I really would like is to be able to have a location or a facility that we can have long-term, like, camps at, 3-day camps, you know, survival camps, you know, have people come for overnighters where they can either we have little like 6-man or 8-man lean-tos, or even a full-blown little cabin for people to stay in, or a location where they can set up tents, another location where they can set up primitive shelters, or, you know, have some trees or whatever so they can set up hammocks, sleep under the stars if that's what they want to do, where we can learn how to set up traps, learn how to clean animals, learn how to filter water, learn how to build basic fire, learn the essentials of, like, hey, you're going out into the wilderness with next to nothing, and a lot of people don't understand what they're supposed to do first. What do I do first? Do I try to get fire first? Do I try to find clean water first? Do I try to, you know, so a lot of people don't know that, you know, you can go 10 days or 14 days or whatever without food, but you can't only go a certain amount of time without water.
Yep.
A lot of people don't understand that next fire mentality either. You know, hey, I'm going to build this fire now, but what about for the one coming up?
Maybe foraging for things as you're walking through to your campsite or to wherever you're degressing into or out of.
Yep.
We offer those classes.
Yeah. So that would be an awesome long-term, and hopefully it's not that long-term. Hopefully it's only a couple years out, you know. But between all of your experiences and you know, working with different organizations and companies, doing the outdoor wilderness survival and canyoneering, all of your experiencing hunting and growing up outdoors in Utah and stuff like that, kind of some of my experiences as well, growing up with my pops outdoors, and we have a really good program here, and I think we have a program that not a whole heck of a lot of people are doing, and certainly not a lot of people on the West Coast are doing.
I don't know. Not that I've seen it, you know.
Not that I've seen, yeah. A lot of people are teaching firearms, you know. A lot of people are teaching
Yeah, but a lot of people are teaching firearms without the law aspect behind it. That's one of the things that you do differently.
That is true. Yeah, that certainly is true. A lot of people are teaching firearms, and we've run into a number of firearms instructors who just don't have the experience either in the military or law enforcement. They're just, you know, civilian gun enthusiasts that go out and take a couple classes and get certified through whatever organization they get certified through to teach firearms. And you can see in some of their training, and I'm not trying to knock anybody specifically, and I'm not knocking anybody specifically, but you can see in their training, either in their videos that they do or their actual training that you attend, that you're like, wow, you know, this particular individual clearly has never had to pull their firearm or use their firearm in a self-defense or life and death situation.
Doesn't mean they're not good marksmanship instructors.
No, absolutely not.
That's what they should stick to.
Yeah.
Do your marksmanship. That's a great start.
It is a great start, for sure.
When it gets into a life and death situation, you need to keep yourself alive and out of jail. That's where people like you fit in.
Right. And, you know, I don't think I've ever been to a training, and I'm sure there's people out there, and I'm sure that, you know, if somebody watches this video, they're like, oh, so-and-so does this. But I don't think I've ever personally attended a training outside of a law enforcement training through a law enforcement agency that I've worked for that discusses specific use of force scenarios when it comes to firearms and or some sort of other deadly force device, whether it's a blade or whatever the case is. And then has you articulate whatever it is you did as if you're articulating it to a court to justify your actions.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever been to any organization or been to any training like that. If there is a training like that, that's awesome. I'd definitely like to attend it, particularly in the civilian sector. I think we need a lot more of that.
Yep.
And, you know, I kind of got inspired to do that by watching a lot of people on, you know, a lot of people on social media will make all these comments like, oh, I don't need self-defense. I don't need this particular program. I don't need to take martial arts. I don't need to know how to use a less than lethal force device. I'll just use my gun. And it's like, well, there's a lot of situations that you'll find yourself in that's not a lethal force situation, that's not appropriate to use a deadly force device. So you're going to introduce a deadly force device in a less than lethal force situation or scenario, you're going to find yourself in jail. You're going to find yourself maybe taking a life that you shouldn't have been taken. And a lot of these people, I would presume, would fall under one or two categories. One, they're sociopaths. Or two, they've never taken a life and they don't understand the gravity of taking a life. They don't understand how much of a heavy burden that weighs on you for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Unless, of course, you're a sociopath, in which case it's not a heavy burden at all. They don't care. So, yeah, that's definitely the perspective that I always try and teach from. Again, you know, when we go out and we do, like we went out with Ryan and we did strictly marksmanship training.
Yep.
You know, we're just trying to get where he was shooting into a tight circle from known distances. And that's, obviously, we're not doing use of force training and in that one particular day while we were out.
It's all going to depend on the student.
Yeah, their level of training is going to depend on a lot of things.
I can't take somebody who's never camped a day in their life and hand them a knife and say, okay, go live for 3 days.
Right.
It's not going to work out very well.
Right. Yep.
Well, I think you're onto something. I think we're onto something.
Well, if nothing else, it seems like there's a number of people that are interested in what we're doing.
And we're having a great time doing it.
And we're having a great time doing it, yeah. For sure. You can't hang out in a gun shop. One of the very first gun shops we went into was Faith Armory. Since we kicked this whole thing off. And we heard that story about that one guy talk about how he was in a deadly force encounter and didn't have a clue as to what to do. I was talking to the guy behind the gun counter. And, you know, the guy that's standing behind the gun counter selling you a gun probably knows a lot about guns. Probably shot a whole heck of a lot. He's probably a great shot. But when it comes to, hey, what should I have done in this situation? They might not know the best advice to give to somebody.
In this case, at Faith Armory, you did give him good advice. But
right. And even
you never know.
And you could tell he was apprehensive about giving that advice too. And so you should be, you know, when you ask somebody, because you don't want that getting back to you. Well, hey, I did this thing, and this guy that I bought the gun from at you know, this particular gun store said it was okay to do that. Now, luckily, he didn't.
Yeah.
Luckily, the guy who was working behind the gun counter.
Hey, you should probably talk to an attorney or a law enforcement
right,
officer about
yeah,
that.
he didn't peg himself into, you know, it was a perfect answer.
Yep.
So, that's essentially the SAVAGE Combatives program in a nutshell. The wife's planning on, she's going to school full-time right now. She's working her way through a dietitian degree, sports nutrition dietitian. So that's going to be another aspect that I want to include into the program, surviving against heart disease, cancer, diabetes. You need that, yeah.
I need that.
A lot of people in America need it. A lot of people in general need that, but I think you're probably going to be more likely to encounter one of those diseases as a result of poor diet poor health, poor decisions when it comes to your lifestyle, that you are in a deadly force encounter with another human being or out in the wilderness. So I think that would really kind of round out the entire Savage Combatives program. Not to mention, how many people that have we talked to? I know for me it's been quite a bit, but you've been around long enough to, how many people have we talked to that said, hey, I really, really want to get involved in your martial arts program, or I really want to get involved in one of your programs that you have, I'm just grossly out of shape and I won't be able to do it?
A lot.
Yeah, there's been quite a number of people. So to be able to get those people on board with, you know what, hey, step number one, let's get your life back. Let's get, control of your life back to where you are living a healthier lifestyle so that you can be there for your wife and children, grandkids, so on and so forth. Or maybe you don't have a significant other or kids. You just want to be able to start doing the things that you want to do.
Yep.
Go hiking and backpacking, and hunting and fishing, or maybe you just want to walk around Disneyland without, keeling over and dying.
Yep.
So that's definitely something that. And it's cool that that was something she was passionate about anyways and wanting to go through. So she'll be done with her program in a couple years, and it'll be one more thing to kind of wrap into the whole Savage Combatives.
I think that's pretty much answering everybody's questions that they've had so far.
I think so, yeah. I don't think I've left anything out. We have hats and shirts, patches, dump trays. A lot of that stuff is really just to kind of, we've come out of pocket so much because we haven't made any money. We haven't taught any classes. We haven't done anything to generate revenue. So we're really just trying to break even at this point with the money we've spent on camera equipment and fuel, getting to these different locations to do interviews and provide videos for these guys and so on and so forth. A lot of that costs money. So we're hoping to just be able to break even at some point. And not to mention, it's great advertising.
Right? It's stopped all the time, especially with the truck, the shirts, hats.
Yeah. We were up north just last few days. We got stopped a lot.
Why everybody always asks why the Vulcan?
Oh, yeah, people do ask why the Vulcan. That's a good question. One guy tried to call me out and say, are you guys even Scandinavian? So, yeah, my grandmother immigrated from Sweden. Great-grandfather and great-grandmother were both Swedish. They came over here to the United States and kind of started a new life. My great-grandmother ended up getting really sick, and I guess she could have been saved, according to most of the family, had he brought her back over to Sweden, and that didn't happen. So she ended up passing away when my grandmother was really young. And my grandmother was the first real generation to grow up in the United States from Sweden. My father being the second, me being the third. So I've got a lot of love and infatuation, I guess you could say, with my Scandinavian roots. In addition to that, my last name is the Anglo-Saxon pronunciation of Ragnar. So, I got some family that I've done a lot of ancestral research and so on and so forth. So, it's been cool learning about my ancestors and so on and so forth. In addition to that, being a Marine and being, in the whole warrior culture, the Volknut especially is the knot of the fallen warrior. So I have an opportunity to kind of honor my Swedish or Scandinavian roots in addition to, honoring the fallen warriors that have come before me. And, it's ironic that we're shooting this on Memorial Day, talking about the knot of the fallen warrior. So
it kind of fits too. I came from Germanic and Swedish descent.
Yeah.
I don't look Swedish, but there's a little bit in there.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I came up with wanting to use the Volknut. And then on the back, you came up with the design. We have the Tree of Life that's superimposed into the Volknut. And this particular Tree of Life, it's not an ash tree. Typically, the Tree of Life is an ash tree, but the tree that we chose for it is a willow. And The reason why I chose the willow was kind of to honor my teacher that passed away in 2014, who was the headmaster of the Shidari in Agiru, which is the school of the Weeping Willow. And a lot of the martial arts, particularly the Japanese martial arts that I trained in, like the Tagagi Yoshin Ryu, Yoshin means willow as well, were willow arts. So it gave me an opportunity to kind of honor the martial arts that I've trained in, a teacher that I had that was left a major, major impact on my life, with at the same time incorporating a tree, like the Tree of Life, into our overall symbol. So that's why we have the Balknut and the superimposed tree on it, which I thought you did a great job making.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people do ask about that. Usually they just walk up and be like, "What's that for?" Because, a lot of people don't understand social.
Are you a heathen?
Are you a heathen? Most people don't understand what heathens are.
They don't.
But, the other cool thing about this Balknut, depending on whether or not you're a heathen or not, so, a lot of people follow our channel or follow us because they are actual heathens. And they do honor the old ways, Odinism and so on and so forth. So that's cool for them. And that's cool for us too. Especially because it's so deeply ingrained in my family history. I forgot to mention I still have family over in Sweden. My cousin Monica lives over there. And I think I have a handful of cousins over there. So from what I understand, according to my dad, we either still have a family farm there, or at one point in the not too recent past, we had a family farm over in Sweden. My grandma used to go back all the time. But she passed away a number of years ago, and we haven't been back since. So I need to make it a point to go back there.
Savage trip.
Savage trip. In either case, so the heathen thing. So the other kind of cool thing is there are 3 triangles in one. So a lot of our people that follow Savage Combatives that kind of fall under the more Christian Catholic type deal use that for their like the Trinity. It's a Trinitarian type thing for them. So it's been kind of cool watching people that follow us that kind of have their own interpretation or their own, take on what we're doing. All I know is Savage Combatives, what my goal or purpose is to make an organization that's an inclusive organization and not an exclusive organization. Too often in martial arts and in the firearms world, people are striving for exclusivity. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're a really exclusive organization. We're a really exclusive company. We're so exclusive that you need thousands of dollars to be able to come and train with us or hang out with us. We want an inclusive organization. We want people to kind of want to come and hang out with us. That's why we try to do the Facebook Live videos, and that's why we try to do a lot of the
bloopers at the end of the credits.
Yeah.
Just the fun stuff.
Yeah. And we try to convey that in, I think, a lot of our videos where we're laughing and smiling and having a good time, because that's what we are doing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're about. We're about wanting to hang out, We went on the Savage Combatives trips. I took my family with me, We're all about family. And I think that, when you look at kind of the old Viking culture, they were the same thing. They honored their ancestors a lot. They were all about family. They were all about, bringing the community together. So that's what my goal is. It's what we aim to do, I think. It's what I aim to do. Pun intended. So.
Well, this is going to be a little bit of a long video, but definitely informative. I'm actually not going to edit this video at all. I'm going to post it just like it is.
All right.
Total behind the scenes.
It's not a bad idea. Well, hey, we'll sign off with this then. If there's anything that we forgot, or anything that we might have left out, or any other questions that you guys might have, go ahead and just drop them in the comment section. And if there's not too many, we can just answer them right then and there. But if there's like a common question that a lot of people are answering, maybe we can do another video, or a lot of people are asking rather. Maybe we can do another video and answer that.
We get enough questions and interaction. Maybe we can do a podcast.
Oh, we could do that.
A monthly or a weekly podcast.
You know, the other thing that we wanted to do, and we haven't talked to these guys about it yet, is wanting to host a Come Meet the Savage Combatives day. 4, 6, 8 hour day where you guys come out, meet us. Maybe we'll have a couple classes, some hands-on stuff that you guys get to do, and you guys get to just meet us, interact with us, ask us questions, tell us how stupid we look, whatever.
We get that a lot.
We welcome everything. So, if that's something you guys are interested in, let us know, and we'll see if we can square away a little piece of property and host a little get-to-know-us day, get-to-know-us half day or something like that.
Do some free training.
Yeah. Well, I'm all about training.
Yeah.
It's what Savage Combatives is a training program.
And I'm all about food, so we're going to have food there.
That's true. You are all about food. I like food, too. All right, guys. Well, without further ado, stay savage. Stay salvaje.